Scottish Blues. One day, Douglas was taking a goods train to the station when he saw some children at the station, and Douglas stopped there after he took his last goods train to the station. The children looked very happy to see Douglas. "Look," called some boys, it's Donald. "Hello, Donald." "I am not Donald," said Douglas. I am Douglas. Can't you read now? My nameplate and my number 10 on my tender." He snapped. "We're sorry," said the children. We haven't even learned to read yet properly." "Oh, I see," grumbled Douglas as he was uncoupled to his train and puffed away. And next, it was Donald's turn to be mistaken. He arrived at the station that day, and there were the boys waiting for him. "Hello again, Douglas," they said. "Do not mistake me for my twin Dougie," said Donald. "I am Donald," he said, and even the boys and girls were even more confused. "We're sorry, Donald," they said. "We'll remember next time." said Donald and puffed away. But until later, Douglas came to speak with Oliver. You don't think I'm mistaken for my brother Donald, do you?" said Douglas. "Wow," said Oliver. "It's hard to tell. You and Donald do look the same, but it's twins for you, isn't it?" "Oh, right," said Douglas. All I care about is that I'm sick of being mistaken for my twin brother," he said. "I'm Douglas, aren't I?" "I know that," said Oliver. He was about to say something when Douglas puffed excitedly away. Then Donald was talking to Thomas. You don't think you called me Douglas by accident, do you?" he said. "Well," said Thomas, "you two do look the same, and sometimes I think you're Douglas, and I think Douglas is Donald," he said. "Sometimes it is hard to tell, you know." "Hello, Douglas," said Frank. "Hey, I am Donald," shouted Donald crossly. "It's all right," said Thomas. "Frank is new here, and he doesn't even know who you and Douglas are just yet," he said. Well, I better do something tomorrow before I get tempered with that Dougie," said Donald. "All right, if you say so," said Thomas, and the chat was over. Until later that night, Donald and Douglas were now having a fallout. "I'm sick of being mistaken for you," said Douglas, "and I'm sick of being mistaken for you too," shouted Donald back. I think we need to come up with something so that we won't be mistaken. Perhaps we used to be painted blue," said Douglas. "Of course," said Donald. I think I kind of like the colour blue, but I think switching back to black changes us a bit," he said. "Why don't you change your blue paint back? Why don't you change your black paint back to blue?" "Hold your tender in there, Donald," said Douglas. "I'm not changing. You'll have to change, and you have to get your whistle changed because yours copies mine." "No, it doesn't," said Donald. "Yours copies mine." And with that, the twins argued all night long until the morning. They were still arguing, and it even began to annoy Billy. "Stop your arguing," he shouted. "Or perhaps you two could do something so that so that you two would still be apart someday. This gave Donald and Douglas the idea, even though Billy can be a silly engine at times. Well, said Douglas, the plan to be turned into blue, might be good. Agreed, said Donald, and the two were excited for their chance. But unfortunately, their plan still didn't work. They were still arguing when Flora trundled in. Will you two just stop? She groaned. I've heard you two want to be painted blue. Is that correct? Yes, said the twins, so that we won't be mistaken. Well, it is a tough decision to see which one will be painted blue, said Flora, and that you'll have to tell the Fat Controller about. Tomorrow, he's getting the blue paint. He's getting the blue paint right from the mainland straight away. Okay, grumbled the twins. All right, said Flora. Now stop arguing now. And she and the twins agreed. But it was hard not to argue. That night at the sheds, the twins were still bickering about this situation when Mighty Mac both had to step in. Will you two stop it? He said. Arguing won't make this better, she said. But anyways, said Mighty, I don't know which one of you might be the blue engine, but I'm sure arguing won't make this better, he said. You two will be brothers, but not twins. But the twins were twins. Yeah, no, said Douglas. It's not being bad if I'm mistaken for Donald, and it's not bad if I'm mistaken for Douglas, said Donald. We do miss each other, but we should just stay the same and get used to it. With that, the twins have had a cheeky plan and whispered it to each other. At last it was already morning, and Flora and the Fat Controller had just came back from the mainland with a flatbed with 2 crates of blue paint. We're here, sir, said Donald and Douglas when they puffed in. Well, that's good timing, he said. Now, which one of you is to be my new blue engine? He said. Now, shouted Douglas, and as Donald bumped the paint truck. It began racing down the bend, but just then, however, Billy was having some fun going too fast when he saw the paint truck. It ran straight in towards him and crashed into Billy. Crates of paint all crashed into Billy, and Billy was covered from funnel to fender in light blue paint. He went. The Fat Controller was astounded to see the truck of blue paint destroyed. Donald and Douglas were very happy with this plan. Then the Fat Controller knew their plan. Oh, hold it right there, he went on. I see now that this was all a trick, he said, now none of my new engines will be painted blue until we get the next crate. Now my cans of blue paint are no more. The twins were surprised. We're sorry, sir, said Donald sarcastically. We're sorry about your blue paint. We'll try hard not to smash another one next time. Right, really? said Douglas to Billy. It's Billy, said Billy, and it's not Willie. See what I mean? Said Douglas. It's hard to get mixed up which one's the right name, he said. With that, the twins puffed away, knowing that their real plan really worked.